Well, welcome everyone. My name is Michelle Yasuda, and I am the program director for the Big Leap Home online programs. And these programs are supporting individuals, organizations, and communities in generating agency, connection, and creativity on our shared planet. And the call you're on tonight is one of the ways that we do this, one of my favorite ways that we do this. So I just have a couple logistics go over, and then I'm gonna turn this call over to the amazing Audrey. So first, I want to invite you to join our Mighty Network space. So we have an online community that's just for the Hendricks. And you will find out all kinds of classes like this one. I'm going to go throw it in the chat right now, an invitation to that. And there's no ads or anything on there. It's very cool. It's just Hendrix stuff, and you can connect with one another and learn more about body-centered tools like you're going to learn about tonight. So let's see, what else? What else do I have for you? Um, I think that's basically it that I want to say, other than it's our tradition in the Big Leap Bridge space to appreciate our facilitators. And I always really enjoy getting a chance to do this with Audrey. Audrey, I remember so much meeting you when I first entered into the Hendrix space, and that was back in the days when we would fly in from places to meet in one space and be together. And I just remember so much your playful presence. It's like
Mm.
very clear. I knew who you were. I knew you meant business, and you did that in a way that was so just delightful and playful and such a wonderful context disruptor. And yeah, I just so appreciate you, and I'm really excited to see what we're going to learn with you tonight. So
Oh, thank you, Michelle.
you're
I
welcome.
really appreciate hearing that. I have like little tiny tears in my corners of
Mm.
my eyes. My heart is starting to beat a little bit faster. Appreciate that. As a recovering, very serious person, I always love to hear when people think that I'm playful or funny. Because that's not generally how I've thought about myself in the past. So it's always nice to like, oh yeah, okay. So, welcome everyone. I feel really thrilled to be here and um, really grateful to be asked to participate because what we're going to talk about tonight is actually one of my favorite things. Um, I want to start. I have you're going to get a whole resource page here at some point tonight, and one of the songs that I put on there and they're all different artful, creative ways to honor endings, honor completions. And the name of the song is "Start at the Ending." So by a really cool songwriter, he's also kind of a storyteller named David Wilcox. And so feel free to check all those things out. But it's with "Start with the Ending." I kind of like that with talks like this also, because I want to kind of seed the experience that that then fulfills itself before we start. So um, one of the things I want to end with is this kind of feeling of affirmation, of like life affirmation that comes with endings. I want to have a really good time and hopefully support you all in having a really good time. Um, I want to share something that's been super impactful to me. So feel like I've shared well, knowing that this is something I've put probably 20 years of exploration into. So the process of learning will continue, I hope, for all of you as it will for me. And but we'll, as we complete the call, hopefully we'll little bit lit a little fire under you to continue exploring your own relationship with endings. And I also want to kind of cast a vision for what's possible when you give your attention to endings and give you a bunch of practices, or at least a handful of practices that you can use starting tonight to support your own experience of endings and having them be really supportive for you as you're moving forward, in your lifetime. And mostly I want to have a good time. That's always my first intention, regardless of what I'm going into. So hopefully we'll all have a good time. So check in with yourselves, and I want you to ask yourselves, are you willing to have a really good time? There we go. And also ask yourself if you are willing to learn at least one new thing, useful thing. I'm trying to find my view. There we go, gallery. And I also want to have you check in to see if you would be willing to take responsibility for designing your own relationship with endings. Thank you, Amy. I like the thumbs up, instant feedback. Love it. So what a couple of things I wanted to share as we get started is, we look at endings, and I think endings get a little bit of a bad rap. When we talk about the cycle of creation, and like usually endings is where people's attention kind of falls off. People get excited about the creation of things. They, like adding things to, modifying things, even like sustaining things. But when it comes to actually bringing something around full circle and creating an ending or bringing your creativity to the ending, that seems to be a place where a lot of people kind of fall off. And the risk of that is that then you end up having all of these loose ends that never get actually wrapped up, and it can be a really primary contributor to overwhelm. So has anyone in here in this room, has anyone ever experienced overwhelm or something they might call overwhelm? Yes. Like there's too much, it's too much. One of the things that I found is like when we're not giving some attention to endings, overwhelm is one of the things that can happen. Um, and what I want to do is provide a bunch of practices that maybe can assist you in reducing some of the costs of not completing or incompletions, which we'll talk a little bit more about, but also to give you some.
Did Audrey freeze or did my computer freeze? Audrey froze.
I
Okay.
froze.
You're back.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm back.
You're back.
If that happens again, we will change locations. I will change locations. So when I think about the stuff that I like to share and I don't like really think about myself as teaching. I really want to share things that work. That's kind of my job, is to like share as generously with as much things that work for me. And when I say they work, it's things that really support the things I value. So one of the things I value is a sense of aliveness. I want to be available to my creative energy, to my aliveness as much as possible. I really value, one of my top priorities is freedom. And, and so when I'm giving my attention to endings, one of the things that does provide is a sense of freedom. I'm not tied to a bunch of undone things or incomplete things. I'm also, you know, have a lot of value in my capacity to use my attention by choice. So when I have a bunch of things undone that I haven't completed, my attention is kind of moving in lots of directions. And I want to, so if in the realm of having a sense of freedom, really valuing my aliveness, a sense of presence with myself and with others, and a sense of having agency over my attention, endings is one of the places that I put a lot of emphasis every day in multiple ways so that I can, in fact, do that. So one of the things I want to have you do right now before we get too far into the class, and I want to have you, whether you write it down, whether you put it in your phone, or just think about it, I want you to consider right now, like without too much thought, just kind of sit back and like, what would you say is your right now relationship with endings? And trust your first impulses. See if you can find like three words right now that describe your right now relationship with endings. Yeah, yeah, completions, endings, yeah, Jack, they're kind of synonymous. Yeah, if you, I think, Rhonda, if you want to type them in the chat, go for it. If you want to share. Yeah, good noticing. Cool. Right on. I'm reading all of your comments. Scary sometimes. I was asking myself the same question today, and the three words that I came up with was one more thing. There's always one more thing. There's always one more thing. Before I complete, there's one more thing. So take a look at your relationship that you currently are experiencing and just sit back and be like, yeah, that's how it's been. So no big deal. Oftentimes, our relationship with endings were influenced or designed by the environment we were in. Maybe we picked up our relationship with endings from our parents or the people around us. Most of the time, I would say that we've kind of been programmed rather than learned. I think it gets infused before we're actually making words. And sometimes our relationship with endings can also be influenced by our first ending of our life, which is our birth. So, birth is as much an ending as it is a beginning. And sometimes that experience we had in our birth can influence how we participate with endings. So, you may, if you look at your words and you think, wow, that looks familiar to something I've heard about my birth experience, that's not that unusual. But now, as a responsible human, you have the capacity to design your own relationship with endings. So if we take how it's been and be like, yep, that's how it's been, kind of a slight bow to however it's been, no big deal. I want you to now let your bodies turn in a new direction. And I want you to start to feel into if I were designing my own relationship with endings or completions, what are three words that I would use that would be my design, my blueprint? How would you like it to be? What would really support your aliveness or a quality of endings that would really support things that you value? Ooh, I like that one, Rachel. Peaceful, beautiful. Yes, Jack, endings can be a depending on the ending, it can feel and be like a big blessing for sure. And take those three words, and I want you to kind of almost like you're going to take them in like you're having a really good meal. And I want you to, if you were using those experiences and kind of letting them circulate through you, almost even creating a quality of movement, if you were to embody those qualities of endings, let your body start to participate with those. Like, I am willing to cultivate or create endings that are, and then fill in your own 3 words and see what that feels like to really try that on. I'm willing to create endings that are, the words that I chose for myself were elegant, simple, and life affirming. So I'm going to create endings, design endings that are really elegant, simple, and life affirming. And I want you to notice in your own body when you try those on and you let them circulate, what that feels like. Maybe notice places in your body that really like go, yes, that's what I want. And breathe a little bit more into that yes feeling. I think, most people when they're making a shift, not so much this community maybe, they think of shifting something that's out here first. If I do that, then I can shift this. And I want to propose the idea. Some of you have heard this from me in the past where it's physiology first. So when you change your own physiology and how you relate to an experience like endings, you can start to actually change your outer experience, your outer um, design for that thing. So physiology first, breathing into that, letting that felt experience of endings circulate through you, and then letting this be the felt experience that you might have at any particular ending. And just see while you're trying it on, see if that would be interesting for you. Like, would you like to be having this experience when things are ending? Now, as we're going through the call, remember I talked about starting at the ending? I want you to keep affirming this. So keep letting this felt experience circulate through you, even as I sort of dust in some information, because this is the one of the things around endings that you have some control over, you have some responsibility with, is how you relate to endings, how you, as a person of creative power, can be infusing and informing and influencing the endings, which happen all over the place. I'm going to take a breath. So I want you to also, as you're letting that circulate, I think this is a place of great wisdom. So this is like may actually give you more information than if we hadn't done the shift. But I want you to, as we're thinking of endings, I think it's great to realize like, well, why why do people skip the ending? Why do people skip over the ending? Why do people avoid endings? Like what, and this is another thing you can write in the chat. It's like, since endings are happening all the time, the end of your breath, the end of the day, the end of the year, the end of, what, like, since it's such a natural part, I think anything that's of nature has a beginning, a middle, and end, and then some space in between. Like, what is it for us or for each of you that keeps you avoiding bringing your creative energy to the end of things, turning away from endings or trying to skip over? What do you think it is that causes people to avoid the endings? I, Jack, I think I saw you say fear. Relationships are not supposed to end. Yeah, that's a voice, has been a voice in my head. Sadness, yeah. Loss, definitely. Uh-huh. Familiar. Sticking with the familiar. The familiar uncomfortable. Finality, absolutely. Yeah, I think all of these are great. One of the things that on the thing of like avoiding what looks like something we don't want to feel, I think one is like, you know, people avoid endings just because they get scared. If I really let go of that thing, then what? You know, and that thing could be anything from a relationship to a piece of clothing to a project, whatever it is. If I really let myself complete and let go of that thing, there's this like, ah, so, feeling scared. I also think there's a kind of habit. So we probably have gotten lots of habits about holding on to things, and habits are things that we just keep going with because it's familiar, regardless of whether it keeps working. It's familiar, it has kind of a familiar comfort or sometimes a familiar discomfort, but it's familiar. It's a sense of known, a sense of habit. And rather than realizing like we actually have some capacity to shift those things, we'll just keep doing things without thinking, oh, I could actually end that. I don't have to keep doing that. And not ending things is also a habit. I think the feeling of overwhelm or allowing yourself to get overwhelmed is a habit. I also think that overwhelm is one of those things that we've gotten lots of like kudos for. Is there any like, at least in my world, like the earlier in my this incarnation, that the busier I was, the more valuable I was. That glorification of busy, I think that's what they call it. So, and that is, you can stay really, really, really busy if you avoid or refuse to really end things. And you know, from my programming and also sometimes, someone looking in, like if I was really like letting myself be complete, then I would look lazy. And somehow that was bad. So being busy was better. Being busy was good. Being busy was valuable. Being overwhelmed was valuable. And all of that kept going by my avoidance of ending. I also think that we avoid endings because of a sense of scarcity. So anyone have stuff in their closet they haven't worn in the last year or two? Because like, but I might need it at some point. I'm sure at some point I will be the same size I was when I was in junior high, and I will be able to wear that thing again. And it has this, when we're not ending things, it's like we're holding on to these things. There's a sense of scarcity that if I really let that go, something bad is going to happen. If I really let my relationship with that thing go, something bad will happen, or I'm going to need it, or I'll feel. And a lot of times, I think, and many of you also said this, is like what we're avoiding are the big feelings that come with ending. So with ending of most things, the feeling experience that's going to come with it is a feeling of, well, not always, but a feeling of like, oh, that's over. And sometimes a feeling of loss, like really letting something go, especially something that may have had an impact at some point. That can be a trick. It's not tricky, it's actually simple, but it can be kind of tough because what you face in the letting go of something, the ending and the letting go, are the feelings that arise from loss. So grief, sadness, often, a whole, sometimes, we may even avoid the joy that comes from letting go of something because the feeling experience feels bigger than what we're currently capable of, or we think we're currently capable of being with. So I think, you know, one of the things that we are distracting ourselves from when we distract ourselves from endings are also three big realities that most people would like to talk themselves out of, I think. One is the reality of impermanence. Nothing nothing stays forever. but really facing into the reality of impermanence, that things leave, things die, things go away, facing into the reality of uncertainty. It would be really nice. Well, actually, in my world, it wouldn't really be nice, but in the past, I would have thought it'd be really nice to know what's going to happen. But, and to, if I really let go of that relationship and there's nothing to, to fill the void, there's just like, well, maybe I'll never have another relationship again. And so that felt experience of uncertainty can be very kind of discombobulating, disorienting. And the big one that I think people avoid is the reality of death, the turning and facing of the kind of ultimate loss, the letting go, which is the letting go of this, human form. It's like, when we really face into creating endings and really giving attention to endings, one of the things that it is invited is also the invitation to face into the reality of impermanence, of uncertainty, of entering the unknown, and also the reality that things die. People die, animals die, you know, relationships, certain forms of relationship die. They may evolve into other forms, but certain forms die. And to really let ourselves breathe with those realities that are, it's just it's the how it is like what the reality of life is, and to really breathe into those things, because as we face endings, one of the things that we're going to be facing is the reality of those things and our feelings about it. Now, the cost of avoiding, we mentioned a little bit, I'm just going to kind of name them and then we'll keep moving, is the cost of avoiding things, avoiding endings, oftentimes is feeling really overwhelmed. We never really end things and let them go. So we end up having like all sorts of balls in the air all the time. Avoiding endings also can create a sense of confusion and kind of getting stuck because it's like you don't know where to turn because there's so many things going on. Avoiding endings will generate a lot of adrenaline because the natural cycle of things is that things end. How it is that things, especially things of nature, things end. And if I'm avoiding a kind of universal reality, a universal truth, that's going to generate a lot of adrenaline. It's sort of like this shouldn't be happening. And it does. Endings are part of life. It can also, avoiding endings can also look like ruminating. Is there anyone that has had a conversation that you go to bed and you're like still in the conversation even though you hung up the phone 2 hours ago or longer or 2 weeks ago? And you're still like, but I could have said this, and then so that sense of rumination of like that just keeps spinning and recycling. That's a great symptom of being incomplete. Like I didn't say what I needed to say, or I didn't complete what needs to be said. I didn't finish a feeling cycle. Something didn't get finished, and so the thing keeps spinning. And so, rumination is I like to think of these things as like symptoms of being incomplete. I get overwhelmed, I'm kind of confused, I feel kind of buzzy and adrenalized. I'm recycling thoughts and ideas about a conversation that's been over for a long time. And and I think the biggest one for me is that all of that stuff has a detrimental effect on my overall well-being and health, because adrenaline has a cost. All of these things have a cost, and they take me out of the place where all my power is, where my well-being is, which is the present moment. When, when I've got energy cords going in all different directions and I've not completed something, then, I don't have my attention right here and right now. Now, since I mentioned the costs, I want to mention the benefits because I think it's good to hold a little carrot out. Like, why would you want to change your relationship with completions, with endings? Like, what's in it for me? Which, it's a valid question. What's in it for me? I think the first thing is like a sense of integrity, like the wholeness of yourself, the experience of the wholeness of yourself happens in this moment. And if I'm got myself out in the past, especially, or like, then I don't have access to my current sense of presence. And I also the sense like when I think of integrity, I think of like the wholeness of myself. It's actually integrity in Latin means wholeness, the breakdown of it. So, and it when I complete, then I reduce all of these competing energies and I gather my energy to be able to be available for what's happening right now. When I'm in that sense of completion or sense of, have given my attention to endings, I start to generate clarity over confusion. So there's a practice in Zen, I think it's Zen, called neti neti, which is like not that, not that, not that, not that, not that, not that, not that. And all of the bushwhacking of the not that, or in this case, like the completing of things, and like, okay, that's over, that's over, that's over, allows clarity for what's happening right now and a sense of clarity in the direction I want to take myself. It also offsets, when I give my attention to endings, it offsets rumination and puts me back into action. So the remedy for rumination, if you want to just like jot this in your mental notes, the remedy for rumination is action. Because rumination is up here, and action is like boots on the ground. And it's like, okay, if that's ruminating, there's something that's incomplete. What, in the interest of completion, in the interest of ending that so that you can move on and take your creative energy to something probably more entertaining, is like, what's the communication, what's the action that allows me to complete or brings that experience full cycle? If it's a rumination, usually it's a communication. At least I found it's communication. And it sometimes can be an action. I also, for me, I really the one of the benefits is just a sense of aliveness, over adrenaline. Adrenaline is, one of our greatest addictions, but it's got a cost to it. I don't know if you guys can feel the
Yeah, I
difference. Like
was
for me,
listening to a
adrenaline,
homeless thing. Anyhow, what? There.
ah,
I think
adrenaline
someone's
has
not on mute.
that kind of
Sorry.
wired and tired. I always think of like aluminum foil, like that little, whoa. And but the sense of aliveness that comes with letting things complete all the way and really participating with and honoring the ending of things. And it makes it, when I give my attention to completion or endings, I make myself available for what's happening right now and for what's possible right now. And for some of you, you know that I have an insane interest in the sense of wonder, the space of wonder. And it's very hard if I've got my energy going all over the place to really like give my attention to wonder, to spaciousness and what's possible, because all of these other places, all these other chords are already taking that energy. So I want to take a quick pause and I want to just check to see if folks have any questions. This is not an exhaustive exploration, but so far. And if you want to just raise your hand and unmute yourself, I'd love to hear people's voices if anyone has a question. Oh, see you, Leslie. Do I have to unmute you or can you?
Hi, Audrey.
Hi.
I found myself thinking about why you were talking about endings, and I found myself thinking about conversations around relationships of all types, family,
Hmm.
friendships, loverships. And, you were saying the ruminating, go into action. I'm not into ruminating. I'm not into overanalyzing, even though I do sometimes. But sometimes I feel like there's a giving space to see how someone reacts, see how they're showing up. And sometimes others aren't as willing or able to complete in a conversation as maybe I am. So I find
Hmm.
myself waiting a lot.
Mm.
Just sort of seeing like how you fit that in when you're talking about sometimes it feels appropriate and necessary to give space. Sometimes people aren't quite as ready. If you just
Hmm.
got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, for first impulse is endings and completions are a process, not a destination. So, and it's also an inside job. I know I'm complete because I can feel the aliveness and the flow and the presence that comes with actually having, completed my communication. And it may be that that's complete for me, but it's not complete for someone else yet. So I might even say something like, you know, I feel like I've communicated all I need to communicate. I feel complete. I'll even say this on coaching calls. I feel like we're complete. And then like, if there's something that you want to communicate, I'm available to hear it. But so it allowing it to be an inside job. Like, is there more like for a sense of completing and ending on my end, which is the only thing I have any responsibility for or control over? Like, I might feel complete. And then what I don't want to do is, and you use the word waiting. So I don't know if you meant waiting in the way that my brain hears waiting, but I don't wait. Like if I'm complete, I complete, and then I go give my attention to something else. And then if someone wants my attention again, then they can have my attention again. But I don't just wait. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, waiting's no fun. Um, and as you're speaking, I can think of times where I'm complete, regardless of
Hmm.
how they respond. But I also
Hmm.
admit that I am incomplete until hearing from someone. I'm not complete.
Hmm.
What their
Yeah, that
communication means something to me.
okay. That's a good noticing.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it feels like a little subtle place where you don't let yourself complete all the way because you're waiting.
yeah, that's
You're waiting
brutal.
for the yeah, it's not fun. So
Yeah,
like it could still be, I usually love just entering things with questions like, I wonder how I can let myself be really complete. Or really like let my like and it sometimes it's literally like an interpretive dance of like letting the circle like closing the circle or like and that was then that's or so practices which we're going to mention here in a moment of like how I can get myself how I can create the ending and then again like then I get access to my energy again and I think what you're talking about is like a little subtle way that you leave the door not quite closed.
yeah,
So maybe you don't have all of your attention. So that'd be a great place to put your attention on like, am I willing? What is it that's keeping me from like letting that door close all the way? And just it's not like what is it, what's wrong? It's like, oh yeah, I feel scared that I'm gonna lose love is often the thing that happens with relationships. Or I'm going to lose that connection or I'm going to lose something and be like
yeah,
and being able to be with yourself and the like yeah maybe can I let myself feel the feelings that come with the potential of losing something and that's
yeah.
something that you have access to you have control over or responsibility
Both of those are
for
helpful. I really like the um, uh, I wonder how I can feel more complete. That's very helpful. Thank you.
yeah 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 and I like the like completing is a verb So, and it's not a destination. I mean, there are rare cases where I would say I burned a bridge and I was willing to burn the bridge and the bridge is gone. So that is over. But there's a lot of places like in the death of my parents or relationships where it's more of a process. Over years, I'm completing the next layer and the next
Fee.
layer. And I feel complete for now.
Carry on is free.
And then maybe something else comes up.
Thank you, Audrey.
Cool.
Nice to
Yeah,
be with
you're
you.
you're welcome. Yeah, thank you. So there are primary places where we can get complete, and I'm just going to kind of name them because I want to get into some of the practices and give you some like hands-on, I can do this kind of stuff. So I broke it down into mass, energy, and space. So meaning like in the dimensionality of us, we have our physical selves, our energetic kind of flowy selves, and the kind of awareness, consciousness, spacious self. And so in the world of mass, and you can kind of note for yourself places where you may be incomplete or where you might want to be giving attention to endings. In the mass world, it's like closets, desks, junk drawers, like so mass world stuff are places a lot of times where we just like if I just shut it in a drawer, it's like the assumption of completion. Closets are a big one. I've cleared out I don't know how many houses now, people that have passed away, and the amount of things that people save is pretty extraordinary. Um, Agreements are another thing that often need endings. Either ending an agreement, like I'm no longer willing to have that agreement rather than just breaking it. And also, I have a t-shirt that says, because I said I would, which means endings is like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to complete that cycle of our agreement and do that thing because I said I would. And that brings that like energy cycle to an ending, to a completion. Another thing that in mass world is like just mechanical things. Like I don't know if any of you have stuff of like, oh yeah, that needs fixing. I'll do that some other time. Or that drip in the sink. Yeah, at some point I'll call someone to get that fixed. So mechanical things like the things that we put off, like just actually fixing them. Taking the action steps necessary to either fix them ourselves or come and have someone fix something that, especially if you hear yourself say it more than twice. Some people say 3 times. I usually like, if I say like, oh, I should really fix blah, blah, blah. By the time I hear myself say it twice, I need to take an action step to close the loop. And also chores. I like chores. Like, for example, in our apartment, like an ending would look like, do I finish the laundry, fold it, and put it away? Do I, you know, when the dishwasher is done, how long did the dishes stay in the dishwasher before I actually put them away? So that the full cycle ending of those things, because those little tiny leaks may take more psychic energy than you think. I remember one of my teachers long ago told me a story, and he said there was a Zen student that came to his master. He said, Master, like, show me enlightenment. Tell me about enlightenment. How do I get there? And the master said, well, did you eat breakfast? And he said, yes, Master, I ate breakfast. And he said, did you wash your dish? Oh, I'm looking for faces going, oh, yes. Like that completion of like fixing a meal, eating a meal, taking the dishes all the way through to completion, all the way through the ending. Because that little bit of like walking into the kitchen the next morning when you haven't done anything after dinner, it it actually leaves a little bit of it can leave a little bit of a friction, and at least for me, a little bit of psychic energy leaking out. Like I know the kitchen is going to be a mess when I get up, and I'm going to have a feeling about it. And rather than like taking the 3 minutes it's going to take to either put stuff in the dishwasher, clean it up, whatever. And that little bit of psychic energy is taking me away from a sense of freedom and ease and well-being and presence. They're little like They might look like eyedroppers, but if you have enough eyedroppers going at the same time or a slow leak in your faucet, it adds up. From a place of energy, the big one I see in terms of endings are feeling cycles. You start to feel something and then you cut it off. And rather than letting yourself ride a full feeling cycle all the way through, and here's the good news is if it's a genuine feeling cycle and not a manufactured one, it's usually going to take a lot shorter time than you think it is. You know, sometimes I will feel like, oh my God, there's a big storm of feelings coming in. And then I like stop everything and I make myself available, like, okay, I'm going to be the rest of the day on the couch, like sobbing. And like 3 minutes later, I'm like, that was it. That's all. And then I have all of that energy to take to whatever I want to do next. So that's a big one because sometimes people feel like that energy moving, that feeling cycle is going to take them out. But if you really let yourself open up to like, am I willing? And this is a great willingness question actually right now. Am I willing to feel my feeling cycles all the way through to the end? That's That's a big one to be asking probably over and over again, especially, and again, and feeling cycles also come in cycles. So I'm thinking, Kirsten, with your group, and you're talking about death and big endings, like you don't get through grief in 3 minutes or less, but you have a wave of grief, you catch your breath, you have another wave of grief, you let your body or sound or something participate with it, you catch your breath, and you may have several, and then you go off and do something fun, like go off and watch a movie. And then you might have a few more. And that, for me, with my parents, like little bits of things lasting a couple of decades, and but it just, my relationship with that, with those cycles is easier and easier. So you're not going to get through the big cycles in one sitting, but to be able to follow the, all the way through to the ending. Communications are also in the realm of energy. So am I saying what needs to be said? Do I feel like I'm communicating all the way through? If I express myself all the way through? Another big one, and then I'm just for the interest of time, I'm going to skip to practices, is financial completions. So places where you said you're going to pay something off, but you haven't paid it off, or you owe someone money for a class you took and you haven't sent them the Venmo yet, or something like that. Those completions, those endings, those are also little leaks in your energy system, in your sense of presence, because I guarantee that you're going to think about it. And it's the idea of thinking about something and then letting yourself follow through as close to the moment as possible. Okay, so couple of practices, because I want to give you something that you can like take home and use, or you're already home and use tonight. So one of the things is an end of day check-in. Here are the questions I ask. So this is about bringing your day, like ending your day so that you actually can get a full, restful night's sleep, hopefully, if you don't have small children at home, which is, are there any, I call them leftovers. Do I have any leftovers? It could be leftovers like the kitchen, literally leftovers, like that I left out, but it could be leftovers like, I meant to do blah, 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 and I didn't do it. Now, I may not have time to do it in that moment, but I can write it down, like, and give myself a what I call a by when. So I'm going to finish that tomorrow morning by 10. Leftovers might also, they could be also great. Like like I really was appreciating that person and I didn't tell them. And so I might send a quick text so that I'm by the end of the day that I have completed my leftovers. Stuff's generally put away. I've done what I said I'm going to do. I express myself all the way through to completion to the best of my capacity. I always like to say, I want to do my best 85%. So there's no perfection here, but to do the best I can. The other great place to put your attention on endings is the end of calls. Now, whether you're a coach or whether you're just someone that uses a phone or even in business calls, like look at the list that you gave yourself of how you would like to be designing endings and start to consider like how could you apply those to the end of phone calls? How do I want those things to end? What would that look like? Like, I want mine to be elegant, I want mine to be simple, and I want mine to be life affirming. So oftentimes I may end a call with an appreciation and then, you know, and then let it end. I also might end a phone call once I hang up saying like, okay, that call is over. That was then. And I'm doing this thing with my hands because I often will do it with my hands like, that call is over. That was then, and this is now. That was our call then, and this is me now. So that I can actually literally cut the cord, the energetic cord between me and that person. Or I might say that what I often will say is something like, I complete that call with all loving intention and releasing anything that I picked up that's theirs and taking back anything that's mine. So that I'm doing a little bit of an energetic unhooking. And like, and I'm sending, I'm releasing with loving intention. So that, I'm not like cutting someone off and like saying, hey, blessings on your path, blessings on my path. And now that's over. A very, very easy, what we can do right this second place of noticing endings is in your breath. So take a moment, we'll just take maybe 15 seconds or 30 seconds, and I want you to just feel the flow of your breath. And bring your particular awareness, your noticing, to the end of your breath. Are you letting yourself complete your breath all the way through? Move all the way to the end of your breath. What would it look like right now to take one of your words for your new blueprint for endings and see how you could apply that to the end of your breath? Like maybe it's friendly or creative, or in my case, elegant. And how would it work? How would it feel to end your breath using one or more of those words? And it's more of an experiment than it is getting it right. Ooh, I don't know. What would it look like to have to have elegance at the bottom of my breath? Sue's wonderful. Yeah, so every day, all day, we have myriad cycles of create, beginning, middle, end. One of the easiest ways to give attention to that is the end of your breath. We talked about the end of calls, the end of your day. Another really easy practice you can do right away is if you have an impulse, follow it. So I have a thought about someone. This happens to me all the time. Some of you have been on the receiving end of this. Like I have a thought or an appreciation of someone and I immediately send them a text. So I've taken that impulse all the way through to the end and then I let it go. I've now done that. Or this is actually not that unusual. I have an impulse, I really have to pee. But somehow I don't follow that impulse all the way through for another 20 minutes. So can I follow that impulse? So simple actions. If you're in a business meeting and you're having a bunch of thoughts, letting your thoughts come out on paper as you're thinking them so that you can bring yourself back to presence. And the last thing I'll say in terms of great ways of endings is at bedtime, especially, is finishing your day with appreciations. Ending the day, like I like life affirming endings. So ending the day with appreciations and with discoveries so that you are honoring the things, what has been working throughout the day, things that you've discovered in that day, and you're honoring those things and taking that honoring all the way through to the end of the day. All right. Did you guys have a good time? Relatively speak, yes, awesome. Did you learn at least one new thing that you could use?
Yes. Yes.
Good. Excellent.
Quite a few.
I'll tell you, for me, elegance is like time disappears. Definitely disappeared for me. I'm like, oh shit. And what I do want to say is like, this is, like I said, this has been a light, for the last 2 decades, something that I put a ton of attention on. And one of my sweet spots, especially around coaching, is in transitions. So endings and beginnings. So if you have additional questions that you have around endings or your relationship with endings or places that you're having big endings and you would like some support, please send me or things from this call that you'd like to share. Please do send me an email. If you have an impulse, please follow through with it. Let that energetic ending of that energy cycle happen. I think that Michelle has put a whole list of artful endings, music, poetry. There's some poetry readings. There's some books and things on there. So if you feel interested in looking more into artful endings, feel free to check out any of those resources. And I'm going to include you in my ending if you're all willing. So take a breath, and I want you. So completing this call, this Big Leap Bridge call with all loving intentions. Releasing any energies that I may have picked up on that are not mine to carry. Retrieving any energies that I've left out in the space. Knowing that we are all whole and complete and fully capable of caring for our own well-being. And so it is. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Audrey. Amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, everyone, 1, 2, 3, and you can press the leave button. We'll go all together. Ready?
Oh, that's great.
1, 2, 3.